Boom! Look at that.
Awesome. Good job. Awesome.
How many monkeys was that again?
How many minutes do we have? Now?
How many
Now? Because let me tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not starting that clock again. That's not happening. So.
No, never.
I think we should start like right now. Restart it right now.
Okay, I can do that.
Can you do that?
No, I'm not going to do that.
Just.
I'm not doing it.
Okay.
I refuse. I won't do it.
Well, I'm going to do it.
There you go.
Yeah, see, there's Kilowatt out there.
Kilowatt makes a solid point. He makes a solid point. It's missing something. It is an archive or an artifact of the past. That's all it is. It is a happy memory that we can have with one There is
another.
a certain
Time is a construct, man.
Time is a construct.
Flat circle.
So is starting on time.
Easier.
It's the new construct. That's what starting on time is.
Whoa, all right. Let's say hey to Chaos 8, Kilowatt, Gurk, Bear Droid. Welcome everybody who's popping in. Good to see all of you. Say hey to our guests if you don't mind. We've got Master Skeeter and Master Levi joining us this evening.
I'm excited about this.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I've been waiting for this one.
Literally the first person to ever refer to me as a master of anything.
Yeah. Well, fair enough.
There was that whole multiple monkey football thing that we just talked about.
That's fair. Yeah.
I have so many comments about what Levi is a master of, but I think this is a family-friendly show.
Oh, it's a family hour. Come on.
It's
You clearly have not met our family in the chat yet. So.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do a rundown since I didn't do that before we went live, just for the guest benefit. So we'll typically record for about anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes, but if we go over, we go over. We just want to be conscientious of your time. Really, we just want to have a conversation with you guys about whatever you want to talk about. And I'm sure that as you bring up stuff that you've got stuff that you're working on, stuff that you have in the oven, previous things that you've been a part of, we'll find interesting threads to pull. But our goal here is to give our listening audience a good feel of who is Levi and who is Skeeter and what sort of stuff do they like to make. And if we do that, we're successful. So
Ninja movies.
Awesome. This is gonna. I was not ready.
Okay, I've got Canon Films, ninja movies like American Ninja. Okay, it's fine. Let's record first, and I've got questions.
Who told you my dirty secret?
I think Canon Films is every kid in the '80s dirty secret. I think.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
We've already got a healthy chat going, so I don't know that we have to kill very much time here at the beginning, which is great. So I think, Troy, if you're ready, if you're recording, which I guess we're recording because we're live at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're good to go.
We are totally flying by the seat of our pants on this one, so yeah.
We'll chat. John's going to be posting some links to some of these fellas' products and things, and if something catches your eye and you want us to be sure to chat about it, just let us know and we'll work it in one way or another, all right?
Where is the chat that you guys are looking at?
So Go ahead. Go for it. It's on Twitch. It's on Twitch, but I'll post a link for you here. This is our live crew, which is a lot of the people that you were probably yelling at in Discord before we went on.
I'm the second worst technology guy in this feed, only behind Levi.
Awesome. Well,
I am in there somewhere. I am definitely
you know what,
in there
Levi?
somewhere.
You set the baseline. That's good. You're the anchor. You're the anchor.
It wasn't very high.
All right. Well, let's do this in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Bite Size Gaming Podcast, the podcast that's serving up a buffet of RPG topics to get you through your week. My name is Zach, and I've got 4 hosts joining me this evening. Got Master John Christian.
Good evening.
The dapper Dungeon Master, Troy Sandlin.
Hello.
I was about to say, I don't think the salute will actually translate into the podcast, but that's fine. He saluted. everyone out there.
You don't know. Don't be the boss of him.
Right?
Yeah.
He's so good. He flosses so well when it comes to the salute that it transfer. I'm sorry, Troy. Carry on.
Yeah,
as you were.
It's too late now. You done effed it up.
Yeah.
He's quite dapper.
There you go. Yeah.
Stole my thunder.
And then these other two yahoos we got with us tonight. Let's see. I would give them a nice adjective, but let's just stick with Master Skeeter, Master Levi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hello.
Happy to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So tonight, this is not our regular episode. This is one of our interviews, and as if you've been listening for a while, you know that these interviews don't have a set track. We just like to get to know more members of our community and point you towards their cool stuff. We bring people on that have caught our eye, whether on Kickstarter, on a convention, or writers on drive-through or whatever it happens to be, and we just like to pick their brain and see why they found themselves in this hobby. So, Skeeter and Levi, if you're ready, I'm going to start off with a couple questions.
I was born ready.
Yeah, by all means, man.
Okay, so let's just start with the simple one, and we'll start. Let's start with Levi. Let's start with Levi here. Levi, tell us a little bit about yourself, and how did you find yourself to be a part of the RPG hobby?
Oh, wow. So I was one of those kids that grew up in the deep South in a deeply, Christian environment. And at the end of a dead end dirt road, where there were no other kids, and the only people that I met were at school or, the kids in surrounding, places or farms. So, I ended up stumbling across a battered copy of the Monster Manual at a yard sale. This guy that lived down the road from us had a yard sale, and his son had passed away. And he had been in the military, and I basically inherited his old D&D books. Now, and then shortly thereafter, I mailed off for a copy of the Red Box. And I got a copy of the Red Box, and I had a BX copy of the Red Box, and then I had a D&D, an AD&D first edition monster manual, and they didn't make sense when you paired them together. They had no idea, and I had no dice, 0 dice. I kept talking about D10s and D20s and all this other stuff. So my friends and I were just trying to figure out a way to play this game, because it's not like you could go down and just buy dice. We're in the middle of Arkansas. There's no way that you're
rocks, man.
So we were flipping coins to see whether or not, hey, if you get heads, you hit, tails, you miss. Same with saves. And it just kind of that's how it started. And then eventually, I met other people who actually had the books and the dice and whatnot, and it kind of grew out of that. But those were my extremely humble beginnings. It was all imagination, because we didn't have modules, we didn't have any kind of we didn't have Dragon Magazine, any of that stuff. We were just making up stuff as we went. And you look back on it, it's nostalgic, but good Lord, it was whack. It was the craziest.
No, I love it. Are you kidding me? That's that's very Jurassic Park. Life found a way. We'll figure out. Don't worry about the pluses and minuses. We'll just flip a coin and see what ends up happening. I love that. That is incredibly ingenuitive. I don't know if I would have been smart enough as a kid to go that route. I'm like, well, I don't have dice. I can't do it without dice. I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, it never really says dice. It just says D. And we had no idea what D meant.
Yeah.
We were like, listen, we need to figure out an outcome somehow. We'll flip a coin, and then we kind of made it up. Here's another weird thing about that whole scenario was I ended up playing over the phone with people. This wasn't like a group. Like you'd call one person and have like a 2-hour phone call where the two of you are, going back and forth. One guy's telling the story and the other person's trudging through the, whatever makeshift dungeon. And we're just throwing things at each other and, crazy, odd, bizarre. It's probably the reason that I write the stuff that I do now, that I'm the way that I am, is because of those, phone calls with friends for 3 hours on a Sunday, and my dad's like, "Get off the phone." But Dad, hey, we're about to fight the I don't know, the mud golem or whatever, so yeah, blame it on D&D.
Yeah, I love that.
So you were like the innovator of virtual play.
Yeah,
that's really stretching.
You blazed the trail.
Yeah.
That is the lowest tech virtual tabletop ever. Wonderful.
The VTT is still a kitchen table.
That's right.
Yeah. But I mean, the kids couldn't do that nowadays because if they get a video game and they don't have the controller, they can't flip a coin.
No, true.
So I gotta ask, like typically there's a second part to that sort of story. So I have a similar story that I could tell actually right across the border in Kansas, right? That's where I grew up and where I live. And typically the second part of that story where you start in rural, small town, Southern America, super Christian household, and you stumble across D&D, there's typically not a smooth sail from that point to here. Did you run into or did you manage to get a good tailwind?
Oh, so let me clarify. My parents were not Christians, and listen, the people that I ended up playing, learning actually how to play the game from, and getting exposed to all the other great role-playing games, they were Christians. So like, I'm not saying anything bad. I don't want just people to think I'm saying anything bad about Christians, because I'm
what
not.
Are you saying, man?
No, not at all.
Oh boy.
Because the people who paved the way for me later and really taught me the game, they were great folks. So no, my parents were very, like, my mom was a big science fiction fan. My dad was pretty open-minded. I mean, for a guy raised in the 40s in small town Arkansas, he had a pretty open mind at that point. But no, I ran into a little stuff during the Satanic Panic, and that was from folks at church, that knew that I had some polyhedrons in my pocket one day at church. Was showing this some other kids after church was over, and I got a little hubbub over that, but nothing to really write home about.
You're like hiding behind, like, around the corner and showing them to everybody, like, their dirty magazines or cigarettes to all the other kids. Yeah. And you guys see them huddled around it like these, like, ooh, devil dice.
This has 8 sides.
Yeah, this one's got 20.
Exactly. What kind of witchcraft is this? More than 6 sides.
I remember I spent the night with these kids. We were like 14, 15. We were spent the night, stayed up all night, drinking soda, playing D&D, and watching heavy metal videos on Headbangers Ball. And then and then the next morning, their parents were like, "Okay, now we're going to go to church. Levi, you stayed over last night. Do you want to come to church?" I'm like, "Of course." There are girls at church, so we went, and no, it's the truth. So we went, we do all the Sunday school, all that stuff. Everything's fine, and they have like a potluck like an hour later. But you have this weird 45-minute hour break. So we're walking around town, and they had just because the church is right downtown, very small town. But this hippie lady had opened up this little store called Crystal Dreams Books and Things, and she was the only person in that town ever to carry not only dice, but like, second edition D&D had just come out, so she had all the 3 core books, so we were just going by there.
A heretic.
Yeah, I was about to say, in a small town in Arkansas, I'm surprised that her house didn't get burned to the ground.
No.
That's coming from somebody who lived in Arkansas during the 80s. I get it.
Well, yeah, then all right, then no, but during that hour break, I bought some dice and had them in my pocket because I was going to take them home. And then after the potluck, I'm standing outside. I'm showing these kids, like, "Oh, look at these cool dice I got." They were like, remember the Chess X Gym dice?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like, and those were like super cool at the time. Like, you couldn't even get over on them. It was just the best. And I was like kind of shaking them and showing them, and this guy walked by and he was just like, "Yeah, that's it's the devil's yada yada yada, whatever." He kind of threw a little fit about it, and I kind of, all right, and I didn't go back. Like, 2 weeks go by, I don't go back to this church or go over to my friend's house. And then one Sunday morning, or afternoon, like, we get a knock on my door, and it's like these 3 guys from the church, and then like the guy from the Sunday school, and he's like, "We're actually here to apologize about this man's behavior. Like we were wondering where you were for the last couple of weeks, and then we asked your friends, and they said that you had been freaked out about the dice. This guy had yelled at you, and they came to apologize. They're like, "That's not he speaks for himself. That's not who we are." My dad, who doesn't know any of these grown men who have just knocked on his door to talk to his 14-year-old son. He's this big 6'4", country boy with his arms crossed, standing there going, So it was.
That's cool that they did that, though. That's really
wow.
Really cool.
Very
cool.
Yeah.
That's not my shared experience, by the way. I had mine was little Hellfire and Brimstone Church in rural Arkansas near Van Buren and Fort Smith, like right there on the Oklahoma state line. And mine was I got like a 45-minute to an hour long near exorcism after I brought in not D&D stuff even. I brought in like it was a Dragon's Lair pieces of a board game that I'd found literally in the trash, and I was fascinated by them. There were a couple of cards and like little magic swords and whatnot. Yeah, it was not as pleasant as that.
So this is going to be of zero interest to any of your listeners or any of the rest of the guys in this talk. But where in Arkansas? What was the name of the town?
Van Buren. It's
I know where Van Buren
which is right on the right outside of Fort Smith.
I grew up in Mina.
Oh, right on. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So again, you're right. Away. No one else knows what we're talking about. It may as well be Greek. So we'll sidebar after this.
Are those places on the moon?
They may as well be. They're like the land that time forgot. Everything shuts down at like 6 o'clock in the afternoon / evening. Yeah.
Yes.
The one Sonic or McDonald's that's in town closes for like dinner's done at like 6:01 in the evening. And
you're speaking my childhood right here.
Yeah.
Well, as much as that is fascinating, I feel like we have determined that Skeeter is like the Cinderella of our story at this point.
What? I do wear glass shoes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well then, it really works. But has been left abandoned in the attic. So Skeeter, let's turn the spotlight onto you for a moment here. Tell us about your beginnings.
Well, my story is not nearly as fascinating because I grew up in civilization, just right outside of Seattle, Washington, where they have phones and televisions and not dirt roads and stuff
Sonic
like that.
And a McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's within rock throwing distance. No, the weird thing for me about when I started playing D&D is I know the exact day because it was when the Seattle Supersonics were playing for the NBA championship. I got bored with the game and I went down in the basement with my cousins, and they happened to be playing this game, and there was all these papers spread out all over everywhere. And they had these 3 little brown books. And if you know what they are, then you know where this is going.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were talking about fighting these giants, and I was like, I want to do this. And so they brought me in and they showed me how to start playing, and the story wouldn't be nearly as interesting if I didn't point out they were all way smarter than I was. These are all the gifted, special kids that were, 3 grades higher than where they were supposed to be. And then there's me who could count. So, I think at this point I had just turned 8 years old. So we're playing and we're doing, and of course died. All of my cousin's friends let me get killed, and I started creating other characters and just kept doing it, and I never really stopped playing from that point forward. Like a lot of people quit during college or when they're getting their families together or whatever. I just kept, either when I didn't have a group, I would read the books. When I had a group, I would play, and it's been 43 years now, which makes me feel ancient. But yeah, that's how I started, and I started actually being a paid part of the RPG business about 21 years ago.
Oh,
so, yeah, and it makes me feel real bad that I haven't gotten further than I have, but I'm kind of a lazy SOB, so it's only been the last 10 years now. Oh, geez, now it's like 15 years. So maybe I've been working. I'm the journeyman RPG guy.
Right on.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's a good segue then. That's the follow-up question is like, so that's the beginnings, and then like, where are you now? Like, what corner of the community did you carve out for yourself, and what do you like to do? And we'll stay with Skeeter for a bit. Yeah.
The funny thing is that Levi and I both got our break in actual paying RPG gigs from the same guy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So when I had just started doing some freelance things where you could, when 3.0 came out, there were all these companies had these contests or, submit your spells for our book. People just wanted content and they couldn't get enough of it. So basically anybody could get their content published. And I had done a couple of things. I remember I submitted some spells to a book and I got a $5 check and I thought I had made it. I made it. This is the greatest thing ever. And then I got on the message boards for this company called Necromancer Games. And I was the third person who signed up for it. And it was the first time, and this was in 2000 or 2001, okay, something like that. And this was the first time I was on message boards for companies. So started chatting with all these people and talking, and come to find out these are actually the guys who own the company are in there. And they're talking, and one of the guys, Casey Christopherson, was writing some material, and he didn't like the game mechanics. So he couldn't figure out how to make this trap work in the game the way he wanted to. And he asked me, said, "Hey, do you know how to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I just whipped it out and sent it to him. And he's like, "I have about 12 more of these. Do you want to do them?" And I was like, "Sure." Not having any clue about, oh, people get paid to do this. No, I just wanted to do it for fun. And then anytime Casey had a game rule or mechanic issue, I would do the math for him. And he did all the writing. And as Levi can back me up, Casey is a prolific writer. So it kept me very busy. And then that kind of launched me into more content editing that I did for Necromancer and just regular editing. And it just built from there. But Levi's got a very similar story with Casey.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, but Casey is he's a good friend of mine and really my mentor. From day one, he's kind of held my hand when I was like shaky legged doe, emerging from the brush. He was that guy who was like, "Hey, listen, it's gonna be all right. Here's yada yada yada. Here's how it's done." I was trying to. I had a module. I had some content. I had some other things that I wanted to publish, and I was trying to get Frog God Games, Necromancer Games to take a nibble on it. I was trying to basically just to get seen, get my foot in the door. And Casey was the only guy that I knew in the industry, and I met him at a con in Oklahoma like 15 years previous. I'd been running a Rappanathic, a 24-hour Rappanathic game. With another DM, we were taking 6-hour shifts, and we were just doing this long ass dungeon crawl. And we got up for a break, and I came back, and there's a strange guy sitting in the chair running my game, and I'm like, "Hey, what the hell, man? Who's this strange dude that's just stepped in and is running my game, killed 2 of my players, He's like, oh, hold up. And his name was in the book, that we were running. And he introduced himself, it kind of went from there. And we just stayed friends, for all these years, just on Facebook and in MySpace, if you want to go back that far. And then we would run into each other at these very small cons in Oklahoma. We'd always kind of rekindle our conversations. And he's like, hey, you really should, put something out. You really should do something. And I was always kind of like, yeah, I will. And then one day I was like, I really want to break into the biz. And he says, well, I know you've been trying, but what you should do is you should just do it yourself. And then he's like, there's this thing called Kickstarter. And I was like, what's that? And then that, boom, that just started a whole, me just going into a whole rabbit hole about crowdfunding. And after failing to kind of get a nibble, on any of my stuff, I was like, you know what? I am going to do it myself. And I made my first module. Again, Casey held my hand. He hooked me up with artists. He walked me through layout. You can do this, don't do that. And I was able to get out to get my first module out, and have it be. I didn't blow the doors off anything, but it was enough to get it funded and to pay everyone and to have it look good.
Yeah. What was that first module?
Oh, it was called Jungle Tomb of the Mummy Bride. It was like an old
and it's wonderful.
I like that.
I haven't. Yeah. That's awesome.
I love the name.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It just, harkens back to the old school. We all know those modules that had those. You put in a verb here, add a couple adjectives here, boom, you got a title.
It's kind of like a Universal Monsters title too. It's got that same old school feel to it, like very pulpy, like a pulp.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing. Is to have a kind of a grindhouse style, which now at the current climate, that's a very common thing. You get a lot of that of those kind of adventures, and I wasn't the first to do it, but I really love that style of storytelling and role playing, and that whole the very cinematic portrayal of the game mechanics, which DC's like a game like DCC does very well. You can do with the heroic deeds and the all the spell burn and all that kind of stuff. You can really get into some very cinematic moments in your game, and I really like that. So that was the kind of the push that I had for my first module and all the ones that have come after. But yeah, that's I got to wet my beak a little on my own stuff, and then that kind of got me, I don't want to say noticed, but that got me my foot in the door enough to where I could basically tug on the pant leg of a few people and go, sir, please, can I have a job? And then every now and then somebody would throw me would let me wet my beak on their project a little bit. Let me do 5,000 words, or like Casey let me do 36,000 words on City of Brass.
Nice.
He was very nice about that. So, but it just kind of picked up, and I would do my own stuff, and then here we are 3-4 years later, and things are going fairly decent. So,
yeah, like looking at your products. I should have said at the beginning, but I met both of you guys for the first time at Gamehole Con. But some of your stuff was well known to us here on the podcast. Ahead of that, I think I know we talked about the Glimmering Crypt of the Iron King phylactery got brought up. I think when that was live. So to me, there's a really interesting, and I'll rope Skeeter in on this too, for both of you, in that I find you both to have this really interesting conglomerate of both a lot of 5e products, or at least some 5e products, but then this mixture of OSR systems and also OSR sensibilities even integrating into your 5e writing, right? And I think we talked about this briefly at your booth, but that's something that I think is a really interesting and rare crossover. Typically, if you're an OSR guy, you don't want to touch 5e with a 10-foot pole. If you're a 5e guy, you're like, why would I want to walk backwards, right? So.
Oh, are we going to get into this? Well, I love talking about edition wars, man.
I'm fascinated by the fact, I think that if you go on Kickstarter and you look at the creators, there's not a lot of people that are bouncing back and forth, right?
Yeah. And you can tell it too, right? Like I've got Crypt of the Science Wizard, and one of the that I've read through it, and one of the things that you state very emphatically is, more or less analytical players are going to have a harder time with this. There's a pretty good chance that you're going to end up dying, and this is a 5e product. Like telling them flat out that there are going to be things in there that are not going to be solved with dice, but that you as a player are going to have to resolve yourself, think through, and if not, then the consequences are you're going to have to you're going to roll up another character as a result of it. That is not something. They're like, it's like playing, it's bowling and not having bumpers on. It's like you may gutter ball at some point or another, and that's kind of like you put that out in the front, and that to me is a very OSR, like Dungeon Crawl Classics, like that. It's that sensibility and bringing that into 5e. I don't see that out there very often in 5e specifically. Instead, a lot of other creators will put that in a Morkborg or in Dungeon Crawl Classics or some other kind of like an engine or a product using their engine to kind of flesh that out there, but not within that 5e environment.
Well, one of the things that I've always talked about regarding edition wars and rule sets and all that stuff is the main thing is have a good story.
Mm-hmm.
The game mechanics don't matter. If you are writing a module to the game mechanics, you're missing a huge chunk of what adventuring and dungeon delving and exploration is all about. You write a good story and then you put the mechanics to it. Now, if you're converting that story to a system that has more player engagement and character livelihood, I'm trying to dance around making it, saying a softer game. If you're gonna put your story in that mechanic, you need to let people know, hey, this may not be for you. I don't want you to spend your money on it if you're gonna get halfway through this and then hate it. I don't want to do that to people.
Yeah.
But I think there is enough. 5e is vast. It has done more for D&D than anything beyond the first time D&D ever got published.
Mm-hmm.
All the other editions are fantastic, but 5e has really just skyrocketed, and some people like it and some people hate it. Whatever. RPGs are like pizza. Like everybody has their pizza they like, and it can have whatever toppings on it. You pick and choose. It's cool, but it's still pizza. So everybody loves it. There are enough people in the 5e game that some of them want what I'm doing. Some of them don't want a game where things are easier than they used to be. They want some potential death. And specifically for Crypt of the Science Wizard, when that gets played at conventions, when the characters roll their skill checks and they get a success, that doesn't mean they bypass the obstacle. That means they get more information, and the players get to make the choices for their characters. It's not the dice running the game. It's still the players, and they are engaged. And I would even say they are more invested in how their characters are going, especially after that first guy burns up in a fire. Then they know it's real, and it's like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Oh, it's that kind of game, right?
Oh, we're doing this. Yeah. So
they saw the 5e sticker on it and thought, oh, this is World of Warcraft. That's no problem at all.
For some publishers, there is we're going to go through this encounter. We're going to lose this amount of resources. We're going to rest. We're going to go to this encounter. We're going to lose this amount of resources. No. Like when people ask me, what's the level, what's the 5e level for Crypt of the Science Wizard? I said, it kind of depends on the player. Because first level characters can go through the whole thing. 20th level characters can fail just as easy as first level. I mean, obviously not, because 20th level characters in 5e are, gods. So
yeah,
but it's that kind of thing. It depends on the player. And if you're going to be a player and you're going to half-ass it and think it's like a computer game and, oh, we're going to save right here and then we're going to go on. It's like, nope, sorry. That's not how it works. The obstacles in this are not designed to challenge you. The obstacles in this are designed to kill you. So put some thought into it or you're going to die.
Well,
that's a great quote. Somebody needs to put that on the back of a book.
Right. That feels a lot like, it harkens back to the style of game design, like the Tomb of Horrors, right? Where it's like, doesn't matter what level you go in as, it's not necessarily the challenge rating or whatever XP allotment that was assigned to that mob or monster or whatever, as opposed to there's an obstacle or a puzzle that you have to think your way through, and then a breadcrumb trail out information about it, details about it, to where you have to make a decision one way or another. At one point or another, there's no net beneath you. Your character has to do something in order to progress, and you just pray that you're making the right decision.
When I started writing Crypt, it was my homage to Tomb of Horrors. But
you can tell.
I didn't want to make it supposedly Tomb of Horrors was Gary, his effort to screw with the players and like, oh, this is unwinnable, nobody can think of this. I hate puzzles like that. I hate puzzles where if you don't have the encyclopedic knowledge of the person who wrote the module, you would never figure it out. That's dumb. That's not fun for anybody. A lot of these are physical obstacles, but in addition to them being pretty complex unless you're thinking about it the right way, I actually put resources in the crypt to help you, but people don't put that together. And what's fantastic is I usually stop my convention games about 15-20 minutes early, and then we just talk about it. And the look on people's faces when they get some of the background, and I tell them some of the history, and I tell them what ties to what, they are blown away.
That is awesome.
The play is one thing, but I also wrote it for the game master to give them some ideas, so it's like a source book, and it's not just like, oh, this thing exists in a vacuum. It's like, no, this exists, but this over here can trigger something over here, and it's dynamic, and as things change, things get harder or potentially easier. And now with level 2, some of the things that happen on level 1 are explained in level 2, and now it's just like minds blown that all of this is going together. I mean, it's blowing my mind as I'm putting it together. I'm like, yeah, okay, I left this kind of nebulous because I wanted to build on this idea. It's like, oh my God, that is really awesome. I would love to play in that. So it's turned out really nice.
I adore it. That's the right type of adventure. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the way you talk about it, and you're like, a first level group can go through it, a 20th level group, because one of the things that I just really do not like about, and it's not just 5e, it was also 4th edition, and it felt like it kind of started in 3rd edition, and that's the forced balance. I do not like the idea of everything being on the same level for whatever level of dungeon that you're on or whatever level of adventure, because that's not how stuff works.
Right, and that's always been in the game, as far as like even advanced D&D. I mean, when they had the charts in the Dungeon Master's Guide, randomly roll on this chart to see what's on this level. It's like, nah. I can be on level 1 and there's some kobolds and there's some goblins, and oh man, if it's really tough, there might be an ogre. You know, that lulls you into a sense of, I mean, I'll be harsh. It lulls you into a sense of stupidity as a player if you know you're only going to be challenged by, 6 kobolds or, 4 goblins, or there's going to be 12 brigands in a broken down keep.
Mm-hmm.
That's no. And their big bad is a giant spider, which honestly, that's pretty bad. But, that's not interesting.
It's a sense of complacency for sure.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It really reinforces that whole video game mindset of, well, if I can access this quest, that must mean that I am of the appropriate level that I can hopefully manage it and maybe just breeze right through it. And I've had players do that kind of thing. It's like, I keep telling you,
well, John,
running is always an option.
We did,
John last week,
yeah.
Go ahead.
My last game with my players consisted of them thinking that there was an incremental degree of difficulty, like a video game. My players said it after the fact, and we did kind of a post-mortem, and they're talking back and forth about what they thought they were going up against. A lot of it was like they looked at it like a video game, and it is a dichotomy or an expectation that's been engendered over time of like a game is going to get incrementally harder, but all of the powers that you accrue and that you utilize over time will meet the challenge, and it'll be the same actual challenge level every single time you go into it. It just feels like hit points, right? For all these you're going to get more hit points. The bad guys are going to get more hit points, but don't worry about it because the stuff that you're going to do is going to do more damage to meet it. So it really is just a wash. So it's really kind of just a 50-50 split no matter what. It's really on normal all the way up. The game doesn't scale from normal difficulty to hard difficulty to nightmare mode as you play, right? Or back and forth, right? And so, but what I've seen with that though is in the last several years is more of an open world mentality about game design. You kind of see it with Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, where you could walk into a space in Breath of the Wild and get murdered by something. You could literally go and fight Ganon at the very beginning if you want to. You see that more and more with the game design. So I think that there's like the cool thing that you're talking about that you're able to bring in a tabletop environment where it doesn't do that typical progression. That other game designers are saying that there's value in that. Other players, there's something that's missing. And that's what's so funny about it too, is when you do that, players think it's a novelty. Like, oh my, they who thought of this? This is so innovative. I'm like, no, we've been doing that all along for all this
time. So last year in the pandemic, I did a bunch of play testing for Crypt Level 2, or this year, I don't know. Time is a construct. And Levi was in one of my playtest groups. And in Crypt Level 2, there is a certain area where you leave a hallway and then you go into another larger hallway. And there is a being in that hallway that you can't beat. Essentially. I mean, okay, just so for all of the people listening on the podcast, there's a Titan in the hallway. And
awesome.
Generally what happens is everybody decides, oh yeah, blast him. Every resource they have goes at him. And he basically wipes you out every time. And then I just restart everybody. And then they come at it with another tactic and do all this stuff. And it wipes them out again. Levi had one of the most creative answers to that. But after the playtest session is over, people say, what the hell are we supposed to do with that Titan? I mean, what's the deal? And I said, what did you do when he came into the hallway? We attacked him. I'm like, you started the fight.
Maybe not attack him.
and the key is, if you go into the hallway and do not interact with him, he leaves you alone. Mm-hmm. But that's not what anybody thinks about. Mm-hmm. Like in Crypt of the Science Wizard, in a certain spot of the hallway, there's 3 metal levers in the wall. People instantly start messing with those. Mm-hmm. There's a checkerboard tile floor. People instantly start bouncing around trying to figure out what the patterns are. All of that was specifically written to screw with players, not characters. Mm-hmm. This stuff has nothing to do with... They don't put themselves in the character's place. And that's the immersion that I'm trying to get. It's like, get out of your head. You're not a player. You're not going to outsmart the GM. I mean, you can outsmart me. I'm just a giant piece of Play-Doh. You can outsmart me. But me as the GM and designing the world you're gaming in, you're not going to outsmart me. Mm-hmm. Be the players and be invested and follow the clues that I'm giving you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of there's a game on the old Nintendo. Have you ever heard of Shadowgate? Any of you guys?
Yeah.
It reminds me. I never played it. Back in the day, what you're talking about of that, like, even back then, people act like there were these small, really, really cool places in game history, video game history, right? Shadowgate did that, where you go into a room and there's a dragon in an alcove at the other end of the hall, and if you try to attack it, you die.
Oh instantly. God, yeah, no, I do remember that.
Right,
I remember that.
You attack it, you die. If you take something, you make sure you take the right thing, or you die. If you take if you take a shield first, you can stay there for a couple more rounds while he blasts you over and over again until the shield finally melts and you die. All right, so even in video games back then, that choose your own adventure kind of path that you had with stuff like that, and that to me is awesome. I think the hard place that I find with that is that in a video game, trying again is just as easy as hitting the reset button. Whereas in ongoing campaigns where they've invested a lot of time into it, my players got frustrated, or a handful of them got frustrated because they were expecting one thing, and then I defied their expectations by putting something out there that not necessarily that they couldn't beat, but they couldn't beat it by just going in and Leroy Jenkinsing it like they had been.
Right.
You're gonna have to think through this. You can't just go charging in, and you can't split up, for God's sake. You've done that this entire time. You're going to have to be cohesive. But anyway, so yeah, I feel that. I feel that as a designer too. Whenever I'm running games, but I wonder how much of that is just like I want them to play it a certain way. Like one of the things that Gygax was known for is I don't like the way that you're playing my game, so I'm going to change all the rules to make sure you play it the way I want you to play it, kind of thing.
Well, I know Levi subscribes to this as well, but when I'm writing a scenario, I'm kind of thinking of it like a movie. Because I've even started adding side boxes in everything I write that says cinematic element. Hey, this right here was inspired by these 3 movies, and this is what I was thinking. So incorporate that if you want.
Yep, I love that.
And cool. Levi does that. Everything he writes is some weird acid trip 70s, movie that's just wonderful. I just sit around and read his modules like books. I'm like, oh God, this is fascinating.
Well, let's pop over there for half a moment.
Very kind of you to say, Skeeter.
I think that's the other part of this interview that I wanted to touch on, which is that we talked a lot about systems and balance and or lack thereof. But Levi, you're doing a lot of things that are trying to, at least in my mind, trying to just steer away from that sort of talk altogether and just focus on what's inspiring. What can I write that gets you to express or describe something to your players that they've never seen or heard before. I'm thinking about your phylactery books. Obviously, your Magic and Shit book is along those same lines. As like no one else has a book like that on their shelf.
I swear that book When I got the PDF, I read through and I'm like, this is a wizard that drank the bong water. I love it, man. I absolutely love it. I love it.
I have incorporated so many of Levi's items in my playtest campaigns. People have no idea what to do with it. I mean, they're out there just enough that everybody is concerned, but they always, yes, I want that item, but I don't know what it's going to do to me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, then you're gonna love the sequel for Zine Quest. It's called Vulgar Display of Magic. And if you're a 90s metal fan, then you get it. So.
Oh yeah,
I love that title.
Oh man,
that's awesome.
And it's spells instead of magic items this time. Right. It's all spells. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So that's awesome. So that is your next upcoming project then? Is a Zine Quest?
No, I've got another zine I want to do before then, but I need to. These paper shortages and then Kickstarter shipping shortages, they're jacking with me. So I've still got 3 projects I need to deliver before I throw anything else out. I owe that to my backers at least. I have plenty of stuff written already. I've got 3 projects that are just waiting to go out that are written. They just need a little bit of art here and layout, and they're ready to go. So that puts me ahead. But I need to make sure that the backers are taken care of before I start putting out any other projects.
But Levi does cool stuff with his magazines. Like, talk about your latest one.
Which one?
That you can't buy the book.
Oh,
I love this. This is the greatest thing ever.
It's you get your creative juices flowing, and you can't stop creating anyway. You guys are all designers. You know what it's like. You can't. That never turns off. So you're always writing a dungeon, you're always making up NPCs, or you're always coming up with an adventure, or jotting down notes. So I had this kind of side project that I had going on. I didn't know quite what to do with it. So it came out to about 16 pages, and I thought, let me slap this together in like a cheap little zine. And I don't want to sell it because, it's not very slick. It's not like the paper quality isn't great. It's not. The layout isn't perfect, it doesn't have like all this crazy great art in it. It's got plenty of art, a lot of it is really, really good, but not, like the slicker stuff that we put out. Anyways, so I thought, well, I'll create this thing called Steal This RPG or Steal This Zine. And the only way you can get it is I'm going to bring it to a con, but you have to steal it from me. That's the only way you can get it. I won't give you one.
You just got to take it off the table.
Genius.
You have to take it from the table or from my backpack or steal it from somebody else who stole it from me. That's the only. I'm making 50 copies. The only way you can get it, you got to steal it.
Oh,
so
I love that.
It's a page out of Abby Hoffman's book. Go for it. Steal it. And
it's hilarious.
That's
real simple.
Guerrilla marketing, if I've ever heard of it. At all, man. That's so punk.
It wasn't even marketing. It was just like, I need something to do. I can't put out a Kickstarter, with having these other 3 that are wide open, and I have all these other ones coming out. So where do I even fit it in the product, like the slot? Where do I fit that in? And I thought, well, no, we'll just give it away. But like, how do you give it away? Well, no, we won't sell it. We won't just hand them out at conventions. There's only 50. Let's just make people steal it.
But that's memorable is what I'm getting at, though, right? It's like that's a really great way for people to remember who you are, right? And kind of the sensibility of like the kind of that goes towards like product design. That same kind of out of the box, willing to take a risk, do something crazy, will translate into the what you create. And that to me, it's like to me is a good thing for something to be bolted onto your image, I guess, or brand, for lack of a better term, right? It's like for people to think about that whenever they think of Levi and what he writes. It's like, dude, he did this thing over here and it was crazy. I've got to get his next book. I think even if you weren't going for that, I still think it is a brilliant strategy.
It sounds like something that you need to do at every con you go to.
Oh, absolutely.
You're gonna have to have steal this book number 1, steal this book number 2, steal.
I'm gonna bring like 5 copies to every con that I go to until I run out, and then that's it. But then
we are we're definitely going to make him do this again.
Oh,
But
yeah,
for sure.
Once I run out of copies, you can steal them from other people. Go to their house and steal it. I'm encouraging you.
Oh my God!
House.
Allegedly,
Oh man,
Levi is allegedly encouraging this.
So you condone B&E to steal your RPG?
Oh boy, nope. I
my
have,
God.
Skeeter is the voice of reason. So Skeeter,
I have
you're the Zach,
consulted.
is essentially what
Skeeter
you're
is the
saying.
voice of reason.
I have consulted our lawyer friends, and Levi is out of his mind due to cold.
It's all
and not.
Listen, on the real though, definitely do not steal this RPG. Okay,
Oh
definitely do not steal it. Okay, whatever
podcast listeners should pick up the subtle noise of a head nod along with that statement.
Yes.
I don't think it was subtle.
Or maybe they shouldn't.
No.
Maybe they shouldn't pick that up.
From me.
Yeah, steal it from Levi.
So there's a couple things I want to run through. We pushed you past time, and I don't want to consume any more than I'm allowed. But I want to point people towards a couple of things. The first thing that I want to point people towards is kind of your crew in general, right? The Independent Publishers Union. I know. Skeeter, I think you shared a link with me before we went live here, but there's like 6 or 8 of you that kind of came together.
There's 5 of us.
5. Okay.
That are the core group. It's my company, SGP. It's Levi with Planet X Games, Jim Wampler with Mud Puppy Games, Ian McGarty and Jason Gardner with Silver Boulay, and most recently Jeff Talanian with Northwind Adventures, who does the Hyperborea game. Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, if I actually got that right. I give him a ration all the time that his titles are too long for my brain to digest. But yeah, the 5 of us go to conventions, and it all really started with North Texas RPG Con last year. I was invited as a special guest, and they gave me a table to be a vendor. And I thought, oh, that's awesome. So me with my 4 books in this giant table, that seems like a horrendous waste of space. So I started reaching out to some of my buddies. We all kind of work on each other's projects and give tips to each other. Hey, use this artist, use this layout person, all of this kind of stuff. And we just pooled the resource, and it worked pretty well. And then we decided to keep doing it, because if you're a small publisher trying to get vendor space at a convention, A, you can't always do it just because the space is limited. B, it can be expensive. Mm-hmm. So, and you can't necessarily fill a table. Like Levi, if he spreads everything out, can pretty close to fill up a table. Same thing with Jeff Talanian. He's got a product catalog. Jim Wampler is building a product catalog, so he's going to be able to do it. But it's more impressive if you can have a couple of tables with a spectrum of products. We have 5th edition, DCC, MCC, other old school games, and the whole gamut from regular fantasy to Levi's weird Crater Mutant fantasy, weird stuff, Jim Wampler's sci-fi, Talanian's Hyperborea, Conan type stuff. It gives the consumer, once they come to our table and see the products, it's not just like, oh, you have this one thing. We are a buffet of crazy ideas, and especially with Levi and I behind the tables, if you come up and start to chat with us, you're going to be there for a while. You may not have noticed, since we've gone over time so much, we can talk.
That's great. Awesome. Yeah, I there's a reason that I wanted you on the show, right? Is we we stood and talked at your booth, right?
Yeah.
And you guys have interesting stuff, and you're right, like having the variety and not just a variety of like, oh, here's 13 different books, but like here's 13 different books that cover 8 different types of product and eight different types of games or tables or whatnot. Like, there's a lot there for a lot of different people.
And I like the idea that you're helping each other out too.
That's really cool.
I love seeing other creators in the community that are helping. They're helping to lift one another. Like, I'm not going to do your product for you, right? Nobody expects that, but giving them direction, kind of taking them under your wing, or even if nothing else, like, it's, rising tides lift all ships. You helping each other out. It's great.
Yeah.
The thing about the RPG industry is you can be the most talented person in the world. RPG industry is all about who you know and who your friends are. An example of that was our booth placement at Gamehole. I mean, you saw where our booth placement was. We
Perfect.
were right next to the front doors, directly across from registration tables. So all the traffic that came through that convention passed right in front of us. And it's because we know people and are friends with people who put the convention on. So we got this sweet placement. And, I know a lot of people in games. And, at GaryCon next year, I'm writing the GaryCon module because a friend gave my name to Luke and said, "Hey, you want to do a horror module? Have this guy write it." There's something wrong with him. So, so that is just adding to how I can help other people, because now I can do the same thing. I can introduce somebody to the people putting on GaryCon. We were able to get a sweet vendor spot at GaryCon because Jim Wampler used to be on staff and is still kind of on staff for the convention. So in February at TotalCon, with Jeff Talanian, he is tight with the people who put on TotalCon. So we're getting a sweet vendor spot there too. So it really is a tight-knit community if you can get the right people and do the right networking.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Real quick, there's something I'd like to say about the IPU too. When we called the Independent Publishers Union, obviously, it's more of a league of supervillains.
It's not a union.
More like the Legion of Doom of the giant head rising up out of the swamp. It's more along that kind of thing. It's not a union in the sense that we've unionized, which is something I think gets lost, especially with like current news in the RPG biz. But we really do. We're a union of friends. Like, we're just a gathering of dudes who came together and we're like, let's we're all kind of, we're all doing pretty well on our own, but if we come together, like, we're going to be stronger. And then you've got guys like Jeff Talanian with his Hyperborea stuff. That doesn't look or play like anybody else's stuff. It has a very distinct feel to it that is like Michael Moorcock dropped acid with Robert E. Howard, and then they got together and went bowling. You never know where that game is going to go. It's so cool and so refreshing, and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't look like anything else. And then you got like Jim Wampler with Mud Puppy Games and all of his Scientific Barbarian stuff and all the check this artifact and fight this mutant and all these little source books that he has to support Mutant Crawl Classics, which he also wrote. So he, when it comes to post-apocalyptic stuff, like, to me, he's the GOAT as far of this current age of people. He's just the greatest guy that's doing that right now. I don't think anybody really touches touches what he's doing. And then you got guys like me and Skeeter who, I mean, we literally just write weird fantasy. We write what we want to play, you know. Yep. Like, you know, we're not really worried about editions. Like you were talking about how some stuff feels like 5th edition and OSR, how there's kind of a melding of the two. And I think that's when you get a couple of old school guys like Skeeter and I who have just kept playing all these years up through all the editions. And then we're putting out stuff that is honest, and we're not trying to, you know, take your dollar. We're trying to, you know, we're packing these books, you know, just full of content, so that you're having a good time. You're playing the kind of adventures that we want to play ourselves. And I think that really shines through, you know, with those kind of products. But you get a blend of all these different kind of methodologies and the approach to RPGs, and it really makes this cool, like, you know, stew of creators who are helping each other out and just providing just a little something different.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a rant. I'm so sorry.
No.
That was great.
No, I think that we just need to cut out that audio bit and just have that playing on loop at your booth, and then
Right.
There you go.
We don't have to have that on a loop. Levi says that like 47 times.
There you go. I was like, you know what? I bet he says. I bet there's a reason that came out so smooth.
Well, this way it saves his voice.
It didn't feel smooth when it was coming out.
Well, here, let me do this then. I'm going to point everybody towards one more link, which John's been posting in chat here. You can find Levi's stuff on Exalted Funeral, which, if you don't know, is an awesome website full of amazing independent creators putting out a ton of crazy stuff. You will lose so much money when you step into that site. But you should buy Levi's stuff even if it's not on sale. But he was kind enough to clue us in that there's going to be a Black Friday sale coming up Thursday through Monday on Exalted Funeral, and you should head over there and grab 1, 2, or 4 of his products. And one of the cool things about Exalted Funeral is it's where a lot of these Kickstarters end up. Right, so you can head over, and I'm about to send you over to Drive-Thru to check out some of Skeeter's stuff, but you can head over to Exalted Funeral, and where most other places are only going to offer the PDFs of these cool little projects that happen on Kickstarter, Exalted Funeral has actual copies, and it's one of the few places that you can get it aside from conventions. So I would definitely point you that way.
And Exalted Funeral, by the way, Matt and Kristen and Jarrett and all those guys, they are the salt of the earth. Like, you talk about the greatest people to ever team up with. Sorry, Skeeter. You talk about the greatest people.
No respect, man. No respect.
No, they're wonderful. They're just you could not ask for a better partner than the folks over Exalted Funeral. I give them 5 stars, A+ across the board. I really, honestly cannot say enough nice things about Matt, Kristen, Jarrett, all those folks over there. They're great. So if you're one of those people who they're really concerned about where their money's going, where their dollar's going, it's you buy from Exalted Funeral, and I'm telling you, your money's going to good folks, because, like, again, they're just the best.
Well,
we're getting comments in chat. Troy, are you about to point that out? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I got to point this out. We have a complaint from chat that now our non-crowdfunding corner episodes are costing our listeners money. But so I've seen a few people say, "Hey, I just picked up this and I just picked up that from Skeeter and Levi." So
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're not sorry. spend the money. It's worth it.
Hey, we make this stuff so people can buy it. We want to share. We don't. I don't want to be. Well, I kind of do. I want to be a hermit, just sitting on the side of the road writing D&D books and just flicking them out into the universe. But that doesn't really get it to anybody else. So, I love it. I know a bunch of people, when we were at Gamehole, came up to Levi and said how much they've enjoyed running his stuff. in their home campaigns. People do it to me, and that's why I keep doing this. It's me giving back to the RPG biz.
Yeah. Well, here, I said I was going to do it, so let me make sure I do it. Actually, you can find Skeeter's Crypt of the Science Wizard and several other things by heading over to DriveThruRPG. And if you search for Skeeter Green Productions, you will find it. And is there another place that you would point people towards, Skeeter, or a better place?
SkeeterGreenProductions.com is my website where you could get actual physical product.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Oh, okay. And then last but not least, this kind of ties right into that. What if people want to keep up to date with Skeeter and Levi? Should they follow you on Kickstarter, on a social media platform? What's the best way for them to stay in the loop?
Levi, I'm going to let you handle this one. It's social media.
Yeah, so I'm on a ton of social media platforms. You can follow me on Instagram at It Came From Beyond Planet X, and then on Twitter at Planet X Games Co. Short for company, and then on Facebook at Planet X Games, and then of course Kickstarter. If you want to follow our projects, just follow Planet X Games.
Perfect. All right. Well, I would love to have you guys on again. And there's an open invitation the next time you have a Kickstarter or just a book coming out or a project you want to yell at people about or a convention you want people to attend or check you out at. Just bring us up and we'd love to have you on. Really appreciate you coming out.
Absolutely.
No, it was
guys.
cool. It was a lot of fun. Hang. Yeah, it was really a really cool hang. And Independent Publishers Union on Instagram. You can follow us there as well. That'll loop you into all of us. So
right on.
Total Con, February 23rd through 27th in Marlborough, Massachusetts.
Yep.
That's the next place that Independent Publishers Union will be. Jeff Talanian has an entire room, and everybody from the IPU is going to be running games at that convention. So
very cool.
Come on by if you're in Massachusetts, or just come on by anyway.
Awesome.
And check it out.
And we'll be at Gary Con after that, and then North Texas RPG Con after that. I'll be at PAX Unlimited here in literally just like 2 weeks up in Philadelphia. So if anybody's going for that, look for this big bald head.
There you go.
And maybe you can steal a copy of this zine from me.
Yeah. Ooh, there you go.
We'll leave the back open.
All right.
You're gonna get mugged.
That'd be a really interesting way of ending that story. It's like, yeah, Levi had this idea, and then it backfired on him.
It went really wrong.
Here, Levi got stabbed 18 times over a zine.
Yeah. Hopefully not.
No.
Please don't stab me.
You heard it first. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again. Thanks to John and Troy for hanging out with me yet one more week. Thanks to everybody who hung out for the live chat. Girk and Chaos and Craig popped in for a bit, which I love seeing Craig.
Yeah, wearing a barrel.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's disturbing.
Yeah. Bear Droid, Kill a Lot. And I'm sure I'm missing some people throughout the crowd here. Polar Knights. Thank you so much. You made it awesome and great, and appreciate it. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to chat with us some more, the best way that you can do that is head over to our Discord channel. There will be a link in the notes. We talk about all things games. We also have channels in there for movies and TV shows and everything else that pops into our minds. So there's always a conversation or 2 or 4 happening over on the Discord. If you have something in particular that you want to message us about that's not on a public forum, you can reach out to us on Facebook and message us privately there. And you'll also, if you follow us on Facebook, get notified when we're live and when we've got new shows for you to check out. Thanks, everybody. And until next week, we'll see you next time.
Have a great game,